Static storage class. The features of a variable defined to have a static storage class are as under. So these are features which are useful for defining static storage class. First is storage, that is memory. So it is stored in memory, that's why storage is there. Now default initial value is 0. So in the case of other storage classes we had garbage value which was a random value, but here it is default initial value, that is here it is 0, it is defined. Now scope, local to black, in which variable is defined. So scope is local to block in which variable is defined. Now life, value of the variable purchase between different function calls. So it is between function calls, so that is life. Compare two programs and outputs in the following figure to understand the difference between automatic and static storage class. So these are programs which look similar but their output is different. So first program is main, then increment, so these are three functions. There is one function which is written three times. Now in increment function, auto int I is equal to 1, printf /s /n comma I, then I is equal to I plus 1. So output of the program is 1 1 1. So that means this is output of first program. Now let's see second program, main increment. Now in increment function, static int I is equal to 1, printf %d comma n comma I is equal to I plus 1. So output of this program is 1 2 3. Now we will see explanation how these outputs are coming different. The programs above consist of two functions, main and increment. The function increment gets called from main thrice each time it increments the value of I and prints it. So it consists two functions, that is main and increment. The function increment is getting called when from main thrice. So function is getting called from main function, so it is inside main function. Each time it increments the value of I and prints it. The only difference in two programs is one uses auto storage class and for variable I, whereas the other uses static storage class. First one was using auto class, second is using static storage class. Like auto variables, static variables are also local to block in which they are declared. So static variables are also local to block in which they are declared. The difference between them is that static variables don't disappear when function is no longer active. So static variables don't disappear when function is no longer active. Their values persist. If the control comes back to same function again, the static variables have the same values they hold last time around. So static variables have they are holding same values which they had last time. In the above example, when variable I is auto, each time increment is called, it is reinitialized to 1. When the function terminates I, vanishes and its new value is of 2 is lost. That means the result is no matter how many times we call increment, I is initialized to 1 every time. So no matter how many times we call increment, I is initialized to 1. On other hand, if I is static, it is initialized to 1 only once. It is never initialized again. During the first call to increment, I is increment to 2. Because I is the static, this value persists. The next time increment is called, I is not reinitialized to 1. On the contrary, the old value 2 is still available. This current value of I, that is 2, gets printed, and then I is equal to I plus 1 adds 1 to I, get a value of 3. Now when increment function is called the third time, the current value of I, that is 3, gets printed, and once again I is incremented. In short, if the storage class is static, then statement static int I is equal to 1 is executed only once, irrespective of how many times the same function is called.